Bienvenue. Welcome once again to another property live stream. This is IPSA kind of magic. It's really focusing on the Association of Independent Personal Search Agents, of which Hamish McClay happens to be the current chairman, and Jackie Dyson is a consultant, having been a member and is it a founding member, Jackie?
Yeah,
and been in it more times than I've eaten hot dinners very recently. I've been involved in it and helped shape it and form it. Today's topic is titled Standards, Not Barriers. And of course, to start us off, as is traditional, Hamish McClay.
Yes, we are sort of going through a particular phase at the moment of explaining a little bit more about IPSA and its sort of depth. Not for IPSA members, because IPSA members are aware of it, but it does act as a reminder too for IPSA members that why we are in the particular position we are in. Regulation, in many respects, is not necessarily the guarantee that things are going to be appropriate. I suppose, put it in a joke way, the government that we're expected to, they are regulated and they're expected to act in a particular way. They don't. They sort of choose which pieces to dive under and all the rest of it. But anyway, regulation in itself can create a scenario where you can tick the boxes and everything's absolutely sort of fine. Now, the good thing about IPSA sort of members, we have to go through, none of its barriers. First of all, what we do with the PCCB is putting in place that any reporting that we are going to be doing, any research work that we're going to be doing, is going to be of a particular standard, a particular sort of quality background that they can actually sort of investigate and check out. And they regularly regulate. They actually investigate, they audit, if you like, what each of us do on an annual basis. So they keep an eye on that side of it. What they can't do, because they aren't the experts there, they can't look into the depth of, if you like, the way that a researcher is working. They can actually write this is your broad sheet of paper. You've got your broad sheet of paper. Now, what we do at IPSA is not create a barrier, as I mentioned, but we create a scenario whereby people, they've set everything up, and then we just make sure that, you like the royal we make sure that the standards of that particular person that's entering IPSA is such that they're enabled to, by their own individual sort of training and background, to investigate records the appropriate way and report them the appropriate way, which is above and beyond that which the PCCB can recognise. I should also mention that one aspect of the membership also, which is along with what is required for the PCCB, is appropriate insurance to cover the quality of that particular work. So there has to be cover for each of the individuals who are involved with this, as well as cover for the searchers. And as Jackie will remind us, local authorities do not have insurance cover.
Okay,
so that in itself is a good thing.
Welcome, Jackie. Welcome to the show. I had my role just before you arrived, hence why I was late. But anyway, moving on. Jackie, it's important that we hold organisations like IPSA to the mark, because otherwise, how can you rely on them? You want to be seen as the kite mark, as it were, for searches. Am I right?
Yeah, that's definitely, as Hamish said, we have to adhere to very high standards. The inspection every year to make sure everything's done correctly and everything is answered correctly and in the correct legal context, because as we know, legal things can be misinterpreted or interpreted as to how you want to think they are. We have professional indemnity insurance, and then we have the residential insurance, which is extra on top, which we have to pay for individually. And that's to make sure that the information from the council, that we are insured against their misinformation or etc. So we have two lots of insurance, and as I say, we are inspected to make sure that we reach those standards, and the information we are providing is of the information that is required. So yes, we are held accountable. As said at the end of last week, the councils are not inspected, they aren't checked, they aren't regulated. The land charges department, I mean, yes, usually the land charges officers are very good at the job, but nobody goes in to inspect to make sure that what they are supposed to register is registered within a certain amount of time.
Right.
That's what the standards were brought in many years ago, even before I started, to say that things should be registered on the land charges register within a certain time. I can remember one instance at certain council in West Yorkshire. Somebody went in temporarily to take charge because the land charges officer had retired, and she asked what these piles of papers were on the windowsill, and it turned out there was hundreds upon hundreds of Section 106 legal agreements that hadn't been registered.
Oh my lord.
Yes, they are supposed to be registered within so many, I think it's 28 days. The thing is, though, what should have happened is when they were doing searches for these on where all these 106s applied, planning should have noted to them, yes, there's a 106 agreement in place. Therefore, the land charges workers should have gone in and found those 106s and registered them. That's what should have happened, but it didn't.
My goodness.
So that's what I mean.
They just let it pile up over time.
Yes, there were several piles because the person now lives in America, so I can say her name. Her name was Paulette, and she asked what they were, and when she found out, she went spare, and then she made sure that they were all registered. So it just shows you that the accountability. Fortunately, if your personal searcher is good at their job, they would have realised, they would have checked at planning that if there was a 106 and would have revealed it, not in the land charges section because it wasn't registered, but in the planning section or extra information section to say there is a Section 106 agreement on this property between dated and what it was for. So then the conveyancer solicitor is aware that that 106 is current. So yes, it was quite frightening. It was quite frightening to realise that the council, but again, it's not their fault. They're not given the staff. They weren't given the staff to actually cope with them. This is what we said to the land registry. Do you realise how many millions of entries you are going to have to put on that register? And if you haven't got the staff who can keep up with those registrations, and of course now the land charges sections aren't getting the revenue that they used to get.
No.
To do the land charges register. So, you know, I feel sorry for them really in a way that they're not getting that revenue to keep up with those registrations to employ the staff to do it.
Well, it's not really fair, is it, in a way? Because what we're doing is we're all championing the fact that there are regulations in place so that organizations like IPSA got standards to work to, so we all know that if you have a searcher that is a member of IPSA, they are adhering to a certain levels of standards. But then you're expecting the land charges to register each one of them without the funds or the people to do it. It's a rod to beat itself, really.
Yeah, it is, and it's the. As I say, when I started a long time ago in land charges at Calderdale, right, it was always the poor man of the section, if you know what I mean. Their funds weren't generated back into the office. They were used to pay for extra things in legal department, such as an extra solicitor. The investment was never put in until, well, it still hasn't been put in. And the thing is, it is a legal requirement, is the land charges, and it is a very, very important department. And I feel sorry for them that they are sort of pushed to the back, yet they are a legal requirement. when there's elections on, usually the land charges is grouped in with the elections department. When there's an election on, the land charges staff are usually taken away from their job, and land charges will be shut until the election's over and all the, so at the moment, elections department are preparing for elections, the local elections, and the land charges staff are usually expected to help them and work on the election. So they shut it down. But it is like elections, it's a statutory requirement. It's not a whim. It's not a whimsical thing that someone's come up with. It is a legal statutory requirement. And as I say, they are used as the poor man of the council, as far as I'm concerned.
So in 2026, Jackie, we'd be ahead of this curve, but it seems we're as far behind as ever. And in many ways, we're worse off because there's less funds and less people to keep up with the rate of the work. It's not, Hamish, it's not as if the work is getting less, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, in some cases, even more, because there's more detail being put in there.
Right.
Because this reflects one of the challenges that we do have, and we're going to be having for sort of some years, because the work that land charges were doing, for which they received money, was being to make that available for within the local authority searches. It isn't in itself part of this. It is part of the, if you like, what we call the Con 29R, which is the regular sort of report that is required. The first part of that full report is the land charges section, and
right.
then added to that is, if you like, the Con 29R, which is all the other detail. Now that's being passed over to land registry, as we've spoken about. The trouble is, land registry themselves are not familiar with what land charges are about. They're learning because they've been working on it for some years now. However, they can't control what goes on in the council. The council dictates what is contained within those. And all the land registry can do is offer guidance. And we now know that there is inconsistency throughout the 300 odd councils that we do have. And of course, the other complication, we've spoken about this, we're getting unitary authorities. So we're losing even more qualified land registry officers. And of course, they're not getting any more funds because of the loss of it, but they still have to maintain all of those records, and land registry get paid for them.
So this sounds to me like even more of a challenge. There's going to be an ever increasing number of unitary authorities. We're going to be collapsing in multiple offices into one, and potentially with people who don't really know exactly how to do it. And,
yes.
And on the other side, we've got an ever increasing number of searches.
Yes.
Well, doesn't that sound like it just reminds me of the old-fashioned 1930s train track with the damsel tied to the tracks, and you could see the train coming slowly closer and closer and closer.
Yeah.
But I like that. It also takes me back to one other thing you mentioned, Gareth, which is a rarity. I mean, but basically, we're old enough to remember the kite mark, because products were manufactured. If they were manufactured a certain standard, they receive that kite mark.
It's a certification of authority. It's like whenever you saw that, you relaxed a little bit because you knew that what you were dealing with is something of value and was unregulated. And that's what, in many ways, to my mind, IPSA is. You know that if you get an IPSA member doing your search, they won't just take the basic information and throw it all back at you. They'll go through it to make sure you're getting the right information.
The thing is, you see, we've got two stamps. We've got the PCCB stamp of approval to say that we're regulated within the search code. And then, of course, we've got that additional IPSA stamp to actually confound it. And one of the aspects is as well, it does reflect what Jackie was saying, because whilst we are regulated by the PCCB, they would not themselves, maybe they're learning a little bit, they themselves would not necessarily understand that the majority of developments would contain a section 106s, and some of them very, very complicated. So that would not come up within the discussion with the PCCB. It's only go through what we're speaking about, the entrance to the IPSA. We need to go through a gateway. Now, At the moment, it looks a bit easy because we've only got Jackie here. The other side of the gate, the other pillar that we have is, and she's not with us today, is Heather. She couldn't make it. She's got several appointments.
She's a busy bee.
But they work as a team on those that are actually coming through. We've got a couple of new ones coming through at the moment, which is great from our particular perspective. We do actually sort of enjoy it. So, but it also reflects one other thing, because we are not just regulated, many of us, to carry out local authority searches. We can also be regulated to carry out drainage and water searches.
Right.
And this is something, again, if this was being carried out by those that weren't fully aware of how to compile searches, or what we've got is a situation here. We've got a property, and somehow or other, there appears to be no drainage facility. The water company, Thames Water, are saying, no, there is nothing there. Yet the owners of the property say, well, we're paying somebody for the waste disposal. What's the problem? And they've got the solicitor saying, well, can't you just change it to say there is drainage because somebody's paying for it? And we're saying, well, not really, because we produce a plan, a map, demonstrating where exactly each of those particular pieces of pipework are. It's very important, because you want to know, is the one in your garden beneath where you want to put your conservatory? But because of that, we've got a battle on our hands. In fact, what we did do, we've looked back to a search from a couple of years ago that Thames Water produced, in which they said there was drainage. Yet today they're saying, by word, we've got this, not by word, we've got it in an email, there is no drainage. But we've got to stamp that out. But what it does demonstrate, we are going to investigate further.
Well, it seems to me that if you are looking to work with organizations to get you the right searches, you want to work with an organization that strains at least to make sure it adheres to the regulation, and more importantly, provides you a service that you can almost guarantee, like a kite mark, is always up to that standard. I mean, I know, Hamish and Jackie, that the entrance qualification effectively to becoming a member of IPSA is stringent, yes?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. As I said last week, you can teach anybody to find the answers, but it's then teaching them to interpret those answers and know when it's necessary to look further, and how you look further, and what you look for, and
Right.
where to go. So it's as I say, it's easy to say, you go into the council and you look here, and here, note down what you find, and then that's it. That's not what it is. It's interpreting that information and refining it to make sure that everything you've got is, one, easy for the conveyancer to understand, and also their clients, because there's so much legalese in all these things that sometimes the client who is buying the property just looks and, what does that mean? So it's making that in the simple language as well, but making sure it says the correct thing. So yes, we need to work to a certain standard. So we need to teach to a certain standard. So therefore, that's when experience and knowledge, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, I'm a knowledgeable. And it's the knowledge that is important.
I think what's most important about what you bring to the table, Jackie, if I can be so bold, is that you bring wise. You're a wise lady, as I've often said. Well, being knowledgeable is as I've said this before, and forgive me for repeating it, Hamish. Being knowledgeable is knowing that avocado is a fruit, and being wise is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. And that is what you bring to the table in spades, because you can look at a thing and say, hang on, that's not right.
Yeah.
And whereas you've actually corrected land registry on occasions because you realize there's some fundamental errors. Now that's being wise, not just simply having the basic knowledge.
Yeah, I always think when people say they're an expert, I always think of what my dad used to say to me. He used to say to me, you know what an expert is? And I'd say, what's that? He says, an X is a has-been and a spurt's a drip under pressure. So that's why I say I'm knowledgeable. I'm not an expert.
And on that note, thank you so much, Hamish McClay, for having set up this channel. If you're watching and you're a member of IPSA, we'd love to hear from you. If you're not a member of IPSA, but you're interested in these topics, we'd also like to hear from you. Certainly, we like to be guided in what directions we represent. This channel is really to promote the benefits of membership and also of using members of IPSA, the Association of Independent Personal Search Agents, which is people who spend their time crafting and ensuring that the searches you get back fit your purpose and help you, guide you as to whether it's a right purchase or not just everything. It's about getting the right information, and that takes knowledge and being wise, Jackie Dyson. And to all of you watching, thank you for being with us. Thank you, Hamish McClay, for having set this up. And Jackie Dyson, who is both a friend of the show and a wise woman, as I've said before. And to all of you watching, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and in these troubled times, look after that mental health. Until next week, bye-bye.